Welcome to Fire Politics. I'm Jerónimo Cortina, political science professor at the University of Houston.
And I'm Brandon Rottinghaus, a political science professor, also here at the University of Houston. Thanks for hanging out with us and talking a little politics on party politics. An exciting week, actually. Lots of big things happening and maybe some future precedents to be set. But let's talk about the Senate. And we've talked about this in a couple different contexts because, like we've said, control of the U.S. Senate is really kind of, at this point, control of government. They have a pretty serious ability to be able to, manage some of the appointments that are coming up and obviously pass legislation. But there are some who would like to see one member step aside. Tell us about that.
Well, it's going to be, if I am thinking of the same person, right? Dianne Feinstein. Right? Dianne Feinstein has been on medical leave since February. And obviously she has announced that she's not going to be running. Mm-hmm. But that's creating significant problems for, Democrats in the U.S. Senate right now. This week, the majority leader is pushing a resolution to have at least, someone or, I would say, a replacement, temporary replacement to go into the Judiciary Committee because it's basically stopping, all judicial nominations that the Biden administration have, and those nominations cannot move forward. So they're trying to do that. We'll see. But as you said, there is a lot of Democrats that saying just call it quits.
Yeah, there are two problems here. One is in California, right, where the replacement's going to take place. So Representative Ro Khanna, who's endorsed Barbara Lee, has said basically we don't want an absentee senator. We need her to step aside right now. The senator is recovering from shingles, which is painful, and also, at an advanced age, potentially dangerous. And so she's taking medical leave. And so she asked the majority leader, Chuck Schumer, to basically, kind of replace her on the Judiciary Committee because, as you said, they're really holding things up. There was a count from Politico that said that there are as many as 14 pending nominations right now, and time is of the essence, right? Mm-hmm. This is a battle for control of the courts, which is really a battle for the future for Democrats and Joe Biden's legacy. So because Donald Trump did so much in the federal courts to remake things, the Biden administration is, trying to play catch up here. And so this is a chance for them to be able to do that, but they can't do it if they don't have the, kind of full team in place. So the problem here is they've got to ask Republicans to be able to make those changes, right?
Yeah.
And guess what? They don't want to play ball.
Really?
Tom Cotton was like, no, I'm not going to help you do that. Right. So this is a huge problem and obviously a bit of a mess.
If she resigns, right, the governor would put replacement, right?
Also a little controversy, so that's interesting
Absolutely,
too.
Right?
To replace her with, right?
But then they could move things forward.
Yes.
So I totally agree. Republicans are not going to play ball.
Yeah.
And Democrats, if they were in the other position, would not play ball either.
Yeah.
So it's, it's a nuclear option here, and it's like,
Right. The missile is like swirling towards your hometown,
it's the elevator, like in the movies, like it's opening the doors.
You can see the steam coming
up.
Right. Well, and let me give you some more fodder for that. Okay. And that is that, we talked last week about the fallout from the Clarence Thomas discussion that, he had effectively not been forthcoming on his financial filings. There are rumors that the Judiciary Committee will consider talking about this. We'll have hearings on this, maybe even subpoenaing the justice himself, which would be pretty unprecedented. So that's another kind of log on this fire, right? Another booster for the rocket, we'll say, for the nuclear option. Because now Republicans are like, well, no, we're definitely not going to help you to kind of, roast our, our cherished, Supreme Court justice.
And it's over this week there were some other allegations that now, they're going that Justice Thomas has to, fix the 2014 statement because he didn't understand the instructions of what needed to be reported. I mean,
great.
I get it.
Even people who go to Yale make mistakes, right?
But
not people who go to Columbia though. So
exactly.
Your taxes are whistle clean,
okay.
right?
Yes, they are.
Well, let's move from the far west to the Midwest, and that is to Wisconsin, where Tammy Baldwin, who's the incumbent senator, one of the incumbent senators, is running for re-election. This is actually good news for Democrats because obviously defending an open seat would be much harder than defending a seat with an incumbent like they are now. This is a swing state. Wisconsin has been one of those places that Democrats have struggled to win, but have won. So she's going to run on a couple of things. I mean, she says obviously kind of parroting what Joe Biden has done in office is one thing. My question to you is whether there's enough there to run on and win on. So I'll bracket that. But she also has made reproductive freedom part of the cornerstone of her re-election campaign. And this is important because there has been some movement there in Wisconsin. Correct. We mentioned this. I think we mentioned this. I don't know. There's been like a million things and time is flat. But there were victories for a liberal Supreme Court justice in Wisconsin as a state Supreme Court. And so there's kind of a hint that maybe that's an issue that Democrats can run and win on. So what do you make of this race? And do you think that the Biden record is toothsome enough that like Democrats can really use that as a reason to like get reelected in 2024?
Well, I think, first of all, the Democrats need to put a serious PR campaign and really start saying what they have accomplished or not. I mean, and the whole idea is, the infrastructure bill that was passed, right? That is huge. And if you look back into American history, probably, we have had a couple of, public spending programs that have put us forward in a very dramatic way. Obviously, after the Great Depression in the 1930s with the New Deal, you have a huge influx of public infrastructure investment, right? Then probably, 1960s, the expansion of the war on poverty by Johnson, right? And after that, you start seeing a decline of that type of investment on behalf of the government. So both the Trump administration and now the Biden administration tried to pursue that. The Trump administration failed, of course. But now the Biden administration has that, opportunity to really, really go on tour, right? And really say, well, the bridge that you were always afraid to drive because you thought that it was going to fall apart. Well, we're going to fix it. Some of these investments are going to take, 10, 15 years to accomplish, but they start to do the PR right now if they want a chance. And I think that reproductive rights is going to be something that has traction, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think you're exactly right. And like we said last week, there's going to be court cases that'll come down that'll deal with abortion rights and access to health care in that way. And I think that that's going to be something that the Democrats are going to have to play up. So there are opportunities here. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough, kind of road for them, right? That's going to be something we'll have to watch. But, some of this goes through Arizona, right? And that's a third of our 3 states we'll talk about. Independent Christian Sinema, who was formerly a Democrat, raised a pretty healthy amount of money, about $2 million in 3 months, but not so fast. Representative Ruben Gallegos raised about $4 million. So he's going to be likely the Democratic nominee, although obviously there's going to be a lot of time between now and then. Republican Mark Lamb is jumping the race too. Now, Senator Sinema has not said she's going to run again, but if she does run, she'll probably run as an independent, which has its own kind of pitfalls. So that's definitely worrisome. But, if you want to capture the eye of the tiger here, Geronimo, I did look in her report, and it did say that Sylvester Stallone, none other than Rocky himself, donated about $11,000 to her reelection campaign. So, maybe the eye of the tiger. Maybe she, you're going to see her running up a snow-covered mountain with a, log or something, right? Just to get ready for this because it's going to be a pretty tough fight.
It is going to be a pretty tough fight. And I think that, the electorate is we're not used to having independents running or starting a campaign, right?
Yes.
You still need political parties because our democracy is based on political parties.
Yes.
Right? Even though the framers would be having a heart attack seeing how, political parties have become indeed factions.
What have we done?
Right? But I think that, Gallego brings, right, that, or he's pinpoint to the Democrats, right? And he's talking to them. He's not talking to, people that might be on the fence or something like that. He's really talking to that part of the electorate.
Yeah.
And I think that Christian Sinema lost a lot of credibility in the 30,000-foot policy proposal view from the Biden administration, in the sense that, she was not going forward because, it's like, we're kind of conservatives here in Arizona. I don't want to, do X, Y, or Z. But obviously, that can inflame turnout on the Democratic side and Republicans, right?
Yeah. They want a real Republican, a real Democrat. And polarization means independents are going to find a struggle to, get some traction. Even somebody like that. And so I think that's the issue for her, is her brand strong enough? Right. She can pull independents to come vote. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure.
Yep.
But it's a key race because Democrats need to hold that seat if they're going to hold the line in the Senate, which looks increasingly more challenging by the week. But speaking of re-election this week, though, our friend, your friend, a guy who I played lacrosse with at, let's just say Princeton, George Santos, a Republican from New York, who's sometimes been known to be a little bit challenged with the truth, is running for re-election. What do you know about that? He says in his statement he's a first-generation American. He grew up poor with a single mom, and as a child of immigrants, he's pleased to serve his community in Congress. I don't know how much of that's true. Is there anybody who believes the things he said?
Right.
I don't even know if it's true. So, what's going on? Like what? How?
Sure. It's delusional, right?
Delusional.
In a recent poll within his district, 70% of constituents believe that he ought to resign.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty high.
Like, I don't know, during the first 3 months of the year, he raised about $5,333 with 26 cents.
And 26 cents?
Yeah.
Who gave him 26 cents?
I don't know. I don't know, but it's just preposterous, right?
Well, and he had to refund a bunch of that money, and so he actually owes more money in refunds than he took
He's in the negatives, right?
Which almost never happens.
Right. So it's...
Yeah. Well, and Leader McCarthy was asked if he was going to support his re-election bid on CNN, and he just laughed, which is not a good sign when your prospective boss is like, no, not going to happen.
Oh, yeah. He laughed.
He literally laughed. And so, and that was it. No answer. Just like, so I don't think it's going to go that well for George Santos. He's probably going to lose. But it does, as we've said before, kind of give us a sense of kind of where politics are today, right? The fact that he has no shame and is going to run again is pretty interesting from a political perspective.
Right.
So, yeah, even if ultimately it won't really change the balance because it's a pretty Republican district. So I don't think it's going to necessarily hurt the Republican brand, but it might actually. I mean, some evidence suggests that it does. And so it's possible that Republicans could struggle in that seat. But it's a pretty red seat, so we'll have to wait and see.
Right.
But let's switch from one kind of chaos moment to another and talk about what's going on in Texas. I know you were looking forward to your tax cut. We'll just see if it comes or not. This is the content that I'm here for. As predicted, we have a fight between the Texas House and Texas Senate. They have both passed some kind of property tax relief bill, but they're doing it in very different ways. Not so much like in terms of how much money or a percentage here or there. It's like literally they're going in two different directions. So the House has advocated a bill effectively that's going to put appraisal caps on the increase of a person's home appraisal. It's going to pump about $12 billion into school districts so they can lower their property taxes. This is effectively going to lower the cap from about 10% to 5%. Dan Patrick says the math doesn't work and it's dead. So that's not good for where the House is. The Senate, in turn, has passed their own bill. They want to raise the homestead exemption from $40,000 to $70,000 and with additional bump for seniors and some tax credits to businesses. So they're going in very different directions here, even though they're doing basically the same thing. Right. So what do you make of this fight? And are we going to get a tax cut or not?
Well, I think they just need to flip a coin. Because
maybe so, actually.
Because, Dan Patrick's position is very clear, right? Mm-hmm. And, what he has signaled so far is like, it's my way or the highway.
Well, and I hate to even whisper this word just to make sure, but special session.
Right.
If they can't agree, then there will have to be a special session. Not because they have to like a budget situation, but because they've promised tax relief. And if it doesn't come, then it's going to be a tremendous problem for them to backtrack on.
I mean, that has to happen, right? Either, and remember that the governor can call for special sessions, 11,000 billion, right?
Yeah.
And only for the point. So he could have or call for one special tax relief special section every other 30 days, right? And that's it. And keep, legislators there in Austin for as long as he wants.
They're not going to like that.
Oh, no, absolutely. But
they're going to run out of places to go to lunch
you
and dinner.
The conference committee has to sit down and try to iron out these differences.
Yeah.
I don't know how, right?
Yeah, they can.
But the only way that could happen is, they have the same goal, right? And the same goal is, I guess, a win for the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
So if they have the same goal, the only thing that they need to understand is if they're going to take the tollway, if they're going to take the highway, or if they're going to use, farm market to roads, roads, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be very interesting because it involves a lot of math and it involves a lot of simulations and a lot of scenarios, right? Because both proposals have, pros and cons in terms of how that money would go. Yeah. For the average tax homeowner, payer, whatnot, is not going to make a difference.
Right. It might make a very small difference for some, and I think that's the kind of underlying problem. They're going to fight about this for months, and then it'll be a few $100 a year, and people are like, "Wait, where's my money?" That's one thing. But I actually think, you're right that the governor can call specials and probably will if this doesn't go. But really, what they need the governor to do here is to step in and to arbitrate this. They need a referee. He's got to put his striped shirt on and come in and say, like, "Okay, here from you, and then let's get this done."
Right.
That's been the way that in the past these things have gone. And honestly, like, there's no other way to get around this. These are two totally different financial models, and you could merge them together, do half of one, half of the other. But at this point, Dan Patrick has dug in and said no. The fact that the House passed this bill and they're so in lockstep in this approach to reduce appraisals means that they don't want to budge either. So I don't know what's going to happen, except I'm excited to see the fight,
right? Well,
because that's the fun part, right?
Right. The what is a game of chicken, right?
Yes.
Get two cars and then put them on Congress Avenue.
I'd love to see Dade Phelan drive a tractor, like straight at each other.
But let me ask you a question. So at the end, the homeowners are gonna get some couple of $100, right? But this tax cut has been hyped so much, right? So if you are paying, let's say a $10,000 property tax a year, and then your next bill is going to be, I don't know, $9,500.
Yeah.
Are you going to be very happy in terms of the reduction that you're going to get in terms of both proposals, right?
Yeah, and it's going down too slowly, and people still see, overall they're paying a lot and more than they used to, and they're seeing like the appraisals of their properties go up, and obviously lots of ways to get to the waterfall here, lots of ways to reduce property taxes. The money's there. They want to do so in a responsible way, and that's the real challenge too, because for Dan Patrick, it's a structural thing where then that affects the budget in the future, right? Where the amount of money that you structurally take away from that local government means that going forward can't happen.
Right.
The appraisal tax does something similar to it, but perhaps provides some more flexibility. So, there are lots of different ramifications to this. I don't think there's a right or wrong way here, but clearly they think there is. The fact that they're so divergent is really interesting. But we're going to see other fights here too. So let's talk about a couple bills that are going to come up this week and that kind of came up last week. The first is a bill from Dustin Burrows, who has introduced this sweeping preemption bill. This is a bill that effectively would give state authority over any kind of regulated thing from the ag code to insurance code, labor code. This would, according to the Texas Municipal League, affect the ability for local governments to do things like check overgrown lots, to watch for bee infestations, payday lending, heavy trucks, unsafe waste storage, and on and on and on. So local control no more in Texas if this goes. And this actually today, literally as of day of recording this, you had 53 mayors argue in a public statement that they're being victimized. You're taking away our ability to govern. And so they're saying, here's the nutshell version of what they're saying. They're saying, you're arguing that we aren't looking out for the interests of our business. Why would you say that?
Right.
That's exactly what we do. And we need these energy, we need this enthusiasm, we need these businesses to do well here in order for our cities to thrive. So
Right.
why would you think we're trying to do something to hurt that? What do you think about this?
Well, I think it's it's a message directed to those mayors that do not necessarily align
Yeah, maybe
with the
so.
views of some legislators. But I think at the end, just from a policy perspective, from urban planning, public administration, it's a bad idea, right? Because there is no way
Yeah.
that you can have the state apparatus seeing if there is a bee infestation
Yeah.
in a local community.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you're going to increase the size of the state to such a matter, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to be local again. So
Governor Abbott to get weekly bee updates.
right. So, it's going to be, a disaster from a
Yeah.
public administration perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that mayors are and should be very worried about
very
that
worried,
because
yeah.
you're taking away the reaction time that they can do, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of mayors, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of mayors.
Very local. Yeah. I like the
we have-
transition.
thank you very much indeed. We have now a full slate
Yeah.
of candidates for the Houston mayoral race.
Yeah, and promises to potentially continue to grow. Sheila Jackson Lee officially kicked off her campaign.
Okay.
She's promised a bunch of different things, like protecting or in dealing with the city's wastewater system, crime, neighborhood lighting. She's argued that we should have expand of metro, where we have rail that
yeah.
goes from downtown to the airports. So there's a lot on the list, but she might not be the only contender.
Right.
The buzz is back. Tony Busby has been rumored to be interested in running for mayor, so that's interesting too, because he can change the game here.
Oh,
Not a
absolutely.
Republican, but Republican light, and he can spend millions of his own money to
Absolutely.
get it happen. So
And we also have Orlando Sanchez, that
Yeah.
was a former county treasurer, very highly skilled political operative. And obviously we have Chris Hollins that decided that,
Yeah.
right now his gig is going to be,
Yeah.
mayor's
mayor's a little crowded. I'm going to switch over here to controller.
which is not a bad move.
Not a bad move. Actually, Mayor Pro Tem Dave Martin's running for that too. He's got a pretty healthy campaign account
Right.
so far. This is going to be a really competitive set of city
absolutely.
elections. You've got 3 of these of these at-large seats open, so it's going to be a really fun race.
Absolutely. And we're going to keep an eye on it for the upcoming weeks.
Hey, thanks for watching Party Politics, and thanks to everybody here at Houston Public Media for making us look and sound so good.
I'm Jeronimo Cortina.
And I'm Brandon Rottinghouse. We'll see you next week.